Hello everybody, my name is Skybound.
Flax.
And we've just got finished watching season 9, episode 10 of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, and that was a totally average episode.
It was a totally average one. I mean, it really was. It was nothing special. I mean, having said that, you know, we've had some really good episodes coming up recently, so it was about time we had an episode that was average. I mean, that's kind of part and parcel with this show nowadays. Well, not just nowadays, but, you know, with this sort of show. But I have to say, it kind of ended up in the direction I was expecting.
I'll be honest, I didn't really know what the moral they were going for with that was.
No, I don't think it was.
Because it was like... Because it kind of went in the direction of, you know, things that may seem kind of strange or obscure have like a reasonable kind of explanation.
Well, yeah, which is...
And also there's the lesson that, you know, you're never too old to kind of have fun with your family.
Yeah, I mean...
But then they throw in this kind of supernatural element at the end by having the carrots all in a weird pattern.
I think it's basically... It's to add a little additional... It's like I was saying before, well, said in the reaction that's below. They were going to give a non-supernatural answer to it, but then put doubt in your mind by basically making this, you know, this creature show itself at the end. You know, just to make yourself doubt it so much. However... they didn't go down that route, but they still said, oh, but what about this? It's like, yeah, okay, fair enough, but it's kind of like...
They kind of did it as an end gag, which kind of leaves it open-ended whether or not there was actually...
I mean, that is a really overdone trope. It really is. It's something that has been done to death, basically. It's a common pattern where basically... There's this mystery, and then there's a common sense explanation, and then there's the, oh, but maybe it's not the common sense explanation. Yeah, exactly, that sort of thing. You know, we've seen it many times before. I mean, I'll give the show some credit. It's been going on for 9 seasons. They're bound to get to the point where they start running out of ideas. I think, to be honest, this is one of the reasons why I'm kind of glad that they are finishing this series, because I think they need to start from scratch with new ideas and taking the best ideas that worked from this, you know, generation and putting them into a new one, because they're running out of ideas essentially, so they need to start from scratch, and this episode kind of highlights that point exactly. It was a very average sort of episode. It wasn't, you know, I mean, I can give it a score right now, and I would say it's probably not even a 7. I would probably give it a 6.9 if that, you know, because it's going to be one of those forgettable episodes. So if people mention it, you think, oh yeah, that was a thing, but it's not really something that you're going to remember overall. It's not going to be like a key episode, like the episode with the villain showing himself, or episode with new characters like the kill. You know, I mean, technically this did have a new character, but we didn't really get to know it that much. It was like more like hearsay. If this character shows up in the next, you know, in the next following episodes, or, you know, because we did have this happen with the Pillars. They were briefly mentioned, and then they showed themselves later on. You know, we thought they were just stories, but they kept on mentioning things like this until they showed themselves again. So it could be... You know, if they were smart, they would make this episode it looks like a filler, but it's not really, and then he suddenly appears at the flipping end of the series, like as a Deus Ex Machina or something.
The thing is about the Pillars, though, is that they had always been in the MLP lore from the beginning.
One of them was.
Star Swirl the
One of them was, but the rest wasn't. They were introduced through the rest of the series as stories in various different capacities throughout the series, and we didn't know we were going to actually meet them, but we saw this common pattern occurring, and eventually by the end it kind of made sense. So maybe this will happen. I'm just saying, throwing it out there as a one-off, maybe this is the case, but probably not. If it does happen, I'll be surprised, but at the same time not surprised, because like, okay, that kind of makes sense. That's kind of good. They've actually been smart about it in some form or fashion, but I'm not expecting it to happen.
I personally think
I want it to happen, but it won't.
I personally think it's going to be another case of the Pony of Shadows.
Oh yeah, it'd be like the Pony of
Where
Shadows.
it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, I guess the Pony of Shadows doesn't really exist.
Yeah. Oh my God,
and then it just shows the shadow at the end.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're right.
They pulled exactly the same thing again.
You're right. They have done it. I forgot about that episode. You know, and that just shows what I mean. It's going to be another episode like the episode with the Pony of Shadows, where I completely and utterly forgot about, because it's like, and it wasn't even resolved at the end. So it's going to be yet another case of doing that. Just to so we had the same trope in the same series, and I mean now we are really getting into the repeating ourselves. It's the same formula, and it's like, you know, I don't want to hate. I'm not saying it was a bad episode. It just wasn't a really good episode. It was an average meh episode, which is actually worse in some regards, because at least the bad episodes you can sort of, you know, you can joke about a bit more. With this sort of thing, it was kind of really forgettable. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was enjoyable, especially seeing Big Mac basically having to work his damn ass off to the point where he was actually the thing causing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty obvious. Like, once we got like partway through that Big Mac's tiredness wasn't just down to the fact that he'd been writing schedules. I've written schedules before. It doesn't take that long.
Yeah, you'd be surprised if it depends how big the schedule was.
If you are spending all night writing your schedule instead of getting some scheduled sleep in, you're bad at schedules.
Yeah, you have a point. You kind of do need to get some sleep in order for you to do decent work.
Yeah.
You know, it's something I've learnt myself, although I don't normally end up doing, actually sticking to that rule. Though I know it's, you know, it's one of those things where you know you should do it, but you don't always manage to do it. But yes, you're right.
Yeah, it's, as far as an episode goes, it was all right. I can't really say too much about it, because to be honest, nothing much really happened.
I mean, the problem...
There was no real story progression.
To give a bit of context of why we're like this at the moment is, we have been watching anime reactions recently, in fact today actually, and when we've watched stuff like Steins Gate and Heroes Academia, we kind of, maybe our standards have been sort of raised a little bit, you know what I mean? I mean, because I hate to bring in better, shows that have been more consistent in their quality, but those two are definitely shows that have been more consistent in their quality. We know that, but we've never.
But I wouldn't even
put them on the same bar. They're apples and oranges.
I'd say they're kind of separate from each other. I wouldn't say my standards are higher. I know exactly what I'm expecting.
Yeah, same here.
I just think this was a not as good episode of MLP as others.
Yeah, I think you have a point there, because, you know, at the same time, I know that this show has done better episodes, because that's the reason why I got into the show in the first place. It was those better episodes that got me into this show. It was those really good episodes that got me into this show, but this is the sort of stuff that I would have watched. If this sort of episode had happened early on in the season, I would have basically said, you know what, maybe this show, I can understand some people having some hype around it, but to me, it's not for me. But I'm hoping that the next episode is better, because I don't want another medical episode. This episode wasn't as good, even if you compare it to the rest of the show. I mean, maybe that's a better way of doing it. Yeah, that's definitely a better way of doing it. I mean, I don't know why I even made the comparison in the first place, but the point is, MLP isn't normally that good when it comes to keeping its standard of episodes consistent. This is a perfect example, but then again, we don't expect it to, but it's kind of...
Ultimately, it is a children's show.
Yeah,
it's a very good children's show, but it is still a children's show, and obviously... It's in its 9th season.
Well, I think to be fair, it's not that it's a children's show, because there's some really good children's shows that manage to stay consistent. I think the problem is, and I hate to keep on going on about it, but it is a fact that the show has been going on for 9 seasons, and just mentioned, and
Yeah.
that is going to affect its quality because they've covered so much ground. They could go into some of the things that they hadn't explained, like the Ponies of Shadows. They, rather than creating yet another creature that won't ever get explained, especially in the last season, they could have gone back and picked the Ponies of Shadows and actually explained that character. If they wanted to take a character that wasn't explained previously, they could have actually built on that character. But the trouble is, that's just the idea. There isn't really anything there that could flesh it out. That's the problem with it, because we were told so little about the Ponies of Shadows, we couldn't do it, and it's the same here. We know a little bit about what it does, but once we reveal, oh, it's real, what do they do next? It's not like where the Kirins, where there's a lot more going on with those characters. I mean, I don't know whether they'll appear again, and if the show writers have any common sense at all, they'll realise, oh my god, that character, that species was such interesting character and everyone flipping loved it, let's add them back in the final season. But, I think we've really talked this to death. I mean, I've even gave my score preemptly anyway, a 9.6. I mean, I don't know what your
You mean 6.9?
6.9, yeah. Ugh, I don't know why it's a 9.
I'm gonna go to a 6.5, to be honest.
You know what? Actually, yes, solid. I agree with you on that. With
6.5.
After this discussion, I think 6.5 is probably suitable. I mean, that has got to be one of our lowest scores, and that's saying something. I mean, Jonathan normally gives scores round about low, but he kind of does the scoring a bit different to Brendan. But
But yeah, that's our thoughts. Maybe give your thoughts as well. Even if you didn't enjoy our discussion so much, hopefully you understand our criticisms.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, it wasn't a really bad episode, but...
6.5 is still above average.
Well, yeah.
But, that's really all I've got to say.
Yeah, same here,
as usual, my name is Skybound.
Starlight Flux.
And we'll see you for the next episode of My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. Goodbye.
Bye.